So, hello and good afternoon. Welcome to our online workshop on championing sustainable energy for SMEs.
Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. Yes. My name is Katharina Krell. I'm a thematic expert for low carbon economy of the Energig Europe policy learning platform, and I'm going to be your moderator for this afternoon. We're going to talk about public policies to help SMEs save energy and produce renewable energy to engage and complete the energy transition. So a few words of housekeeping. We are on Zoom. Zoom is a software that is very democratic. We could all speak and show our cameras, but I ask you to all mute your mics unless the speakers are taking the floor. The audience, please understand that the interaction with the speakers has to be via the chat. You are not invited to take the floor. As you have heard, our meeting is being recorded. The recordings will be put online in a couple of days, along with all the presentations, so they will be available for everybody for later on. Now, this event is brought to you together by the Energig Europe policy learning platform in cooperation with 3 Energig Europe projects that are working on SME energy efficiency and renewable energy production. SME Power, SME Plus, and Reith Industry. And I invite the coordinators to turn on your camera and show yourselves. So we're having Gabor Horvath from the University of Gävle, who is the coordinator of SME Plus. Hello, Gabor. We are having from Prague the coordinators of the Reith Industry project, Stepanka, Holeckova, and Jakub Dytrich from the Czech Technical University's University Center for Energy Efficient Buildings. Hello, Prague.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Chris Ashe, who is the advisory partner of the SME Power project. Chris, hi there. So my colleagues, Lotte van Meel is our web expert, and she will support you with any technical problems that you might have, and she's facilitating the meeting. You can text her under Policy Learning Platform. And I'd like to introduce my colleague Simon Hunkin, thematic expert for low carbon economy like myself, who is going to man the chat and take care of any of your content related question. And also he's holding a presentation later on. Okay, super. So the objectives of today, well, we have designed this workshop to build understanding for the importance of the energy transition in SMEs. We want to see the barriers SMEs are facing, how to overcome them. Of course, we want to highlight what makes a good SME support program and show some inspiring examples. And I would like to launch a first poll to the audience so that you can tell us what you are expecting out of this event. It's a multiple choice. You can tick several answers. Why have you decided to join our event? Do you want to learn how to motivate SMEs to reduce their energy footprint? Get inspiration for your own SME support programs? Do you want to hear the latest on SME support for the energy transition from our commission speakers? Or you want to meet like-minded professionals and network and exchange for the future? So we're having 51 persons out of the 115 that had registered already online, coming still more. And let's see the results of the poll. Okay, so learn how to motivate SMEs to reduce their energy footprint. Yeah, how is this motivation thing going? This is one of the big challenges, and many of our good practices are addressing this. Hear about the latest EU supports. We'll have that. Meet like-minded professionals. Oh yeah, your boss told you to participate. Okay, some has an ear for a joke. Good. So we have built this agenda today then to see how we can satisfy your expectations. And we have a agenda that is built around 4 sessions. So you see the first session is setting the frame with an introduction on the EU regulatory framework, a keynote looking a little bit at the macro level for decarbonization and making the case for SME energy efficiency and renewables, followed by an initial panel discussion with the coordinators from our 3 projects. In session 2, we are listening to 5 good practice pitches from successful programs from different parts of Europe. And we're having 2 discussants who will follow up the presentations with expert questions. In session 3, we're having 2 invited EC speakers. One is going to detail the EU funding landscape for SMEs in the area, and the other is telling us about the draft revision of the state aid guidelines, very important for SME support. And we'll also hear about the services of the policy learning platform. So, and session 4, is optional. Some of you have booked one-on-one meetings with us. Great. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to my colleague Simon. Please switch on your camera and share your screen and tell us about the policy framework. Over to you.
Okay, I hope you can see my screen there.
All good.
Good. Okay, yep, so as Katerina says, I'll briefly set out the policy framework that we need to keep in mind when we're considering today's topic and thinking about just why is it so important that we help SMEs to take up sustainable energy. Well, obviously, as you well know, the EU has committed with its member states to the Paris Agreement negotiated at COP21 back in 2015. The EU already had an existing energy framework, but in response to this agreement, the EU published the Clean Energy for All Europeans package, made up of a number of legislative acts, including the Energy Efficiency Directive, the Renewable Energy Directive, and the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. These set targets of 32% renewable energy use by 2030 and a 32.5% improvement on energy efficiency, both based on a 1990 base level. And whilst I think we all probably know this framework by now, it is entering a new and more ambitious phase. The new commission that came into office in 2019 immediately made sustainability and the low carbon and circular transition one of its main priorities, launching the European Green Deal, pledging a 55% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030, and vowing the continent will be net zero by 2050. So this has led to a host of new initiatives, including the European Climate Law, which was published earlier this year to put the net zero target in law, the European Industrial Strategy, the SME Strategy, the Climate Pact, and the Renovation Wave. But as well as these new initiatives, the Commission has also recognized the need to revise the existing energy framework. So this has been announced as the Fit for 55% package, introducing a carbon border adjustment mechanism, and then also 10 revisions or amendments to existing legislation to ensure that the 55% carbon reduction target can be met. So the first of these proposed amendments are expected in just 3 weeks' time, that's the 14th of July. And whilst we have to wait and see the final publications signed off by the Commission to do exactly what the changes will be, of course, rumors are already circulating, and we're looking at the Energy Efficiency Directive potentially increasing its target from 32.5% to 40% by 2030, and the Renewable Energy Directive increasing to up to 40%, up from a current target of 32%. The other important piece to monitor is the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, but this update is expected towards the end of the year. So how does this framework affect SMEs? Well, as we know, SMEs are the backbone to Europe's economy. We constantly hear this from the European Commission, and it's completely true. They make up 99% of all businesses, create 2/3 of employment, account for half of Europe's GDP, and are responsible for about 13% of total energy demand. And as such, parts of the energy framework specifically target SMEs. The Energy Efficiency Directive obliges member states to develop programs to encourage SMEs to undertake energy audits and then to implement their recommendations. Member states also have to establish favorable frameworks to provide technical information to SMEs, promote energy management systems, and also provide training for energy audits. I've tried to do a little bit of digging, but I've found nothing so far, but we'll be keeping an eye out in the next few weeks to see also any changes in the updated Energy Efficiency Directive that may impact upon the expectations of support for SMEs. The Renewable Energy Directive also requires specific provisions for SMEs, noticeably that member states are encouraged to create support schemes for renewable technologies, simplify administrative procedures and permitting for small installations. So to sum it up, the key messages for the day, I mean, SMEs will have a major role to play in decarbonizing the economy, but they're going to need quite a bit of support to make the change. Member states and regions do now have obligations to support SMEs and consistently improve their policy support frameworks. Many regions and states have a long experience in establishing such programs, so regions can learn from what works, including the 5 good practices that will be presented today. Recognizing the challenges of creating new support instruments, the EU has made lots of opportunities available in the new EU budget, the multi-annual financial framework, both directly managed by the European Commission. So these include programs such as LIFE and Horizon Europe, but mainly opportunities can be found in the European structural and investment funds, of course, managed at the national and regional level. And further, to enable the creation of instruments and to give support, state aid rules and guidance are currently under revision to make clearer what regions and states can do to support SMEs. So I'll finish off with just a couple of plugs. Firstly, be sure to stay with us until our last session, where we will have 2 speakers from the European Commission joining to present the new state aid guidelines and the new opportunities in EU programs for energy improvement in SMEs. And secondly, I'd encourage you to check out our new policy brief published just a few weeks ago, which contains a lot more detail on the policy framework, state aid rules, available support for public authorities and SMEs, and also good practices for setting up SME support instruments. So I believe you will find that in the chat either already or very soon.
Thank you,
so
Simon.
that was it from me. So yeah, Katerina, back to you.
Great. Yes, that set it out. I would like to immediately call Chris Ashe to make the keynote, which will then complete the picture. We have heard the obligations. Chris, tell us a little bit more about the broader framework. I mean, energy efficiency and renewables in one company, okay, but let's hear a little bit, let's take a step back at the macro level. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Simon, as well. Very comprehensive overview of the current directives and standards and regulations that do exist in Europe. I'm going to take a slightly different slant here and look at from the macro level, but end up at the company level or end up at the SME level. My name is Chris Ashe. I am a director of the European Institute for Innovation Technology based in Schwäbisch Gmünd in southern Germany. We represent the SME Power as advisory partners. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey, hopefully, looking at how do we take SMEs on the road to net zero. What I'm going to try to put over is net zero. You've heard this a lot. This is not going to be an easy journey at all. I've heard terms recently and very recently in the introductions of transition. The days of transition, I think, are gone. This is all now about acceleration towards net zero, and I will try to provide the context, both from a policy perspective and more importantly from a technological perspective, because the two are very much interlinked. So Really, what we have to do is look at the challenges that Europe does face. Listening to some of the directives that Simon did put out, these are major challenges, both from a building perspective, from an increase in the renewable energy share, etc. One of the biggest challenges that I see, and I actually haven't put it in as a bullet point, is the growth of SMEs, the competitiveness of SMEs, and COVID recovery has not been mentioned thus far. And this is an opportunity to tackle two aspects, both from an economic value perspective and also from the industrial strategy perspective, because what is very clear, moving from 2021 to 2050, things are going to change, SMEs are going to change, and the sectors that they're currently working in will not look the same in 2030. They'll not look the same even in 2025. So encouragement of taking the SMEs on the correct path and the correct journey is extremely important. And I guess our workshop today will outline that. So decarbonisation was mentioned. It is a cornerstone of EU energy and climate policies. And the numbers are staggering in terms of the greenhouse gas emission reduction. If you look at the little graph that I have there, you can see what can be generated through current policy. So what we're effectively saying, current policy is going to have to be essentially ripped up and replaced with something a little bit more significant. Also, you will see that net zero covers a whole range of areas there, from the power sector, which will have to be decarbonised, through to, let's say, agriculture. Agriculture is probably one of the most difficult sectors to decarbonise, and that is you and I, our eating habits, etc., will change as well. So behaviour change plus technological innovations are extremely important, coupled with the right instruments, the right policy instruments, both at national and at regional level, and hopefully they will be sufficient to take us towards net zero. The big challenge of decarbonisation is the greenhouse gas emitting sectors. So again, if you look at the central part of Europe, let's say Northwest Europe, ranging from northern part of Germany, the powerhouse of Europe, that whole industrial sector is going to have to be changed as a consequence. So therefore, there needs to be key policy challenges and key policy implementations to that. So what are the options? Well, we've listened. Both Simon talked about the EEPD. And energy efficiency. Energy efficiency will only get you so far, and they can increase the numbers by, I think, educationally guessing 45%, 55%, etc., etc. We have come through that transition journey where we had the 20-20-20 arrangements, and they did not meet their target. So therefore, we have to look back sometimes to go forward and ask ourselves, why did we not meet certain targets? I believe it's because it's not just the policies, it's the technology, and also taking that industry with you on that particular journey. So if we want to expand renewables, it's not just a matter of putting X amount of megawatt or gigawatt offshore wind turbines, onshore wind turbines, etc. That will need some kind of energy storage facility to unlock the amount of renewable energy that will be required within the system. The bottom bullet point there is the introduction of green hydrogen. You would have seen and listened to lots of policy developments in this particular area. This is not a solution, but it's an enabler to bring on board the amount of renewables that will be required. So if I was just capturing that slide, I would effectively finish with one bullet point, and that would be total integration. That is looking at energy efficiency, that is looking at the introduction of more renewables into the system, and it's looking at emerging technologies such as carbon capture and storage and green hydrogen. Looking at that in some more detail, there needs to be some significant changes in the power system and the operation. and particularly in the design and the generation mix of energy, not just from a behavioral aspect, but from the systems itself and the utility operators, the so-called TSOs and DNOs, the transmission system operators, and the distribution network operators. They will need to play their part as well. If we look to try to exploit the demand side management, again, that was specifically looking at energy efficiency and development of energy storage facilities. There's an opportunity here for SMEs to actually transfer what they're doing now. For instance, if you look in the northeast of Scotland, where I'm actually sitting at the moment, there is a whole transition happening in the oil and gas sector. That is also true in the North Sea region. So SMEs can business diversify. They can diversify from a dirty energy sector into one which is more clean, and that provides again this opportunity, economic opportunities, and the industrial strategy will allow SMEs to make that transition in a very careful way and make them much more competitive in what they're doing. So efficiency gains and behavioral changes are absolutely central to new policies that are required at a macro and national level. If we look specifically at in industry, you see in the graph there, there's the breakdown of energy. So we can focus in on where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck, as it were. So policies need to look specifically at this. If we look at energy efficiency, which the conference today is very much related to, there is a limitation in terms of the right incentives. How do you take that SME to the place that where you want them to be? You could be taking an SME that has 2 employees. You could be taking an SME that has 250 employees. As you know, that's the definition of an SME. They will have to have correct incentives. And what I would be suggesting here is that those incentives are not primarily based on monetary gain to the SMEs themselves, but there needs to be some incentives. And the areas that we will look at is more fiscal incentives and trying to get some confidence from investors, because the public purse will not take SMEs to net zero. That will just not happen. This will need to be a public-private sector initiative with lots of capital. So therefore, we need not only to get the trust and buy-in from SMEs, we'll need to get the trust and buy-in from some fiscal stimulus from capital markets. Look at recovery of waste heat at sort of city levels, carbon capture and storage, I mentioned, green hydrogen. Yes, there is realistic business cases that are there, but it needs integration. Hydrogen by itself, no matter what color, because you may be aware there are various colors of hydrogen, from nuclear and would be defined as yellow, from that which is generated offshore would be blue, through to green hydrogen, which would come from solar arrays or from onshore wind turbines, or a mixture of that. But there needs to be fundamentally integration for a business case to work. And finally, the last slide there is looking at clustering between industrial sites. And this takes us to a kind of a new area of the system itself. So if we look at the drivers and the new energy mix, you'll see two diagrams, one which is the current model, which is very much static and centralized, fundamentally based on large utility companies. And we take that further into the bottom diagram, which is looking at the future landscape. And you can see that the future landscape is very complex indeed, and driven by digitization. And I believe that that is the area that there needs to be fundamental integration. I think the Internet of Things, or the industrial Internet of Things, will be a prime driver to taking us on that acceleration path to 2030 and then beyond to 2050. So that transformation needs to come from a commodity into a service offer from the power system itself. The EU, the national and local authorities, need to really increasingly interact due to the complementarities, because it's no way is it a top-down process, and neither is it a bottom-up process. but it is both, and that really needs to be understood in new frameworks. Local authorities, well, they need to exploit the synergies that they have, both with the SMEs that might be in their region, but also in terms of putting infrastructure in place and getting the confidence of public and their citizens there. So the local authorities, municipalities have a very, very key role to play in decarbonisation strategies. Taking it to a higher level now, and I really won't want to bore you on this, but I've mentioned it previously. This is about really getting confidence and fiscal policies. You'll see the second bullet point there that I'm mentioning, carbon tax. Carbon tax is already at this area of larger companies. I would suggest that that carbon tax is going to relate and cascade down into SMEs. So SMEs need to be aware that potentially they could be taxed in some of the activities that they're doing. However, if they want to avoid that tax, then there's things that they can do and things that they can be supported on. And I know that from some of the good practices that are going to be presented today, this is a really good area that you can engage with SMEs on. So we would look at convergence of sectors, and that would be from fiscal, regulatory and competition policy issues. There will be a mix of these. Competition, I know that one of the final presentations today, I believe, is on state aid. State aid can be a barrier, but it also can be a stimulant as well. So that again needs to be carefully looked at. And I would just finish up by saying that all of these can create barriers and uncertainties for investors. So it's really important that that confidence is put into the system from directives and from the outcomings of those directives into regulations that will provide confidence. So if we look at a sort of smart city, which I said there's the integration of
2 minutes, Chris.
Yeah, the smart city, looking at the enablement of IoT to accelerate decarbonisation. 75% of all Europeans live in cities. So what's the upsides? The upsides are actions could politically be promoted as ways to enhance the local environment. Downsides are short political cycles. This is a real problem, and there needs to be an agreement where maybe 10, 15, 20-year agreements, irrespective of the political point. But smart cities is an area that really needs concrete actions for decarbonisation. Finally, looking at I would just like to go back to overcoming barriers. Decarbonisation requires businesses to change, and I said that's an opportunity for SMEs. SMEs, if they are in an area that is not in part of the decarbonisation, they are part of that solution, that this is a business opportunity so they can provide economic value and create jobs if they are made aware of that. So it is, in some cases, a simple lack of awareness because SMEs are very much just focused on their own business and they'll not be aware of the larger political and macro level drivers of this. And only a handful of countries have introduced carbon taxes. I've mentioned that, but I suspect what will come out in the next number of years is a cascading of carbon taxes right down into SME level. So the legislative, SMEs waiting for the legislative stick, i.e. to be battered down into doing things. If they're smart enough, I believe they can foresee this and change the direction that they're currently active in their employment. So diversifying their energy portfolio and their energy sources into renewables also provides an opportunity, and there are assistance for them to do such. And just finally, that there are other fundamental incentives is the position within their actual supply chains. This is where I would suggest procurement rules and green procurement will provide opportunities for SMEs to change, because some procurement opportunities may be limited to certain SMEs if they don't have the correct credentials. And I would just like to finish it there. Thanks now.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, that a requirement of SMEs for a clear, predictable framework that doesn't change with each electoral cycle, and that gives that investment security. That's we hear calls from it every night on television in the news, really. And the supply chain argument, I think, is very relevant for industrial SMEs and those that are embedded in the supply chain. They are, of course, being forced by different forces than if we look at the small service SMEs at the local level. So it's hard to lump them all together in one case. But thank you. You've given us a good overview. And I would like to call online Gabor, Stepanka, and Jakub as well for a little panel discussion amongst us. So we've heard about the EU targets, and Chris has illustrated the decarbonization challenge at the macro and a bit at the micro level. Now let's hear how public support can really help. How to overcome this lack of understanding that SMEs have on the importance of energy audits. SMEs often don't see the benefits, we have heard. They don't think about energy as is an external factor to them. They just take it. And they mostly don't realize that the efficiency investments or own renewable energy production can make them more competitive. So how to sensitize them and motivate them to look into these matters? What is our panel saying?
Well, I will say the answer for this question. I think that we need to explain people. SMEs are in fact people, and we need to explain to people that they need the energy audit, because the energy audits will save them. Not only they will save the planet or reduce the carbon footprint, but they will, if they are made properly, they will save the energy consumed, and thus they will save the energy bills, or lower the energy bills. We have to. And by lowering the energy bills, the SMEs could take the money which is saved and invest them in their own businesses and make them more competitive over the market. Maybe we have to explain one more thing, which is, I think, crucial. The energy audits are not quite same as the financial audits, because a lot of SMEs are afraid of the financial audits, are afraid of someone who look into the bookkeeping and find, you have some error and you'll go to jail or something like that. But the energy audits are just supportive scheme for people to know what is the efficiency, or for example, the efficiency of the sources, and will give them the set of recommendations, how they can improve the energy efficiency, how they can lower the energy bills. And there are two types of recommendations that they could be given. And first is some investment option. I don't know, for example, change the power source for more effective and more cost effective, not only just the environmental effectiveness. And the second is, and I like to see them even more, the non-investment options, just, I don't know, for change the setting of the system of measurement and control of the energy in the company. And in fact, I see more and more often that the changing of the system of measurement and control of the energy in the company could save even more money than just, I don't know, to have some new power source.
Thank you for this take. Gabor, what do you say?
Yes, thank you. So we see that in the future, in the near future, there will be a growing interest towards energy efficiency, and this will happen. And one way, effective way, could be that big companies start to take responsibilities, putting pressure on their suppliers as an aim to decarbonize the supply chain, as many of them are SMEs. And this could be sped up by policy measures, which might happen in 5 to 10 years, but it takes time. And we already see anyhow big companies taking this kind of initiative naturally without any policies, like IKEA, for example, could be one example. So this way, energy efficiency could be a strategic importance for the industrial SMEs. And the other thing to your question, that the benefits, how to show the benefits. So when we talk about SMEs, industrial SMEs, a good network with good connections with the SMEs, holding their hand all the way, it's a good way to show them the benefits. You really have to work with them. So the policy owners have to work with these SMEs. And you will see good examples today. You will hear two good examples for the Energig and the PIUS program that you will hear later. Yes.
Thank you, Gabor. Chris, we have heard about industrial SMEs. How about the motivation of service sector SMEs that are less embedded?
They're still going to be challenged with the same thing, which is decarbonisation, and they still will have to play their part in that. One of the points I was making is the integration of energy efficiency with the energy system, with the increase of renewable energy. Those that already know me know that I would often say energy efficiency is not the words that I would use. It's energy effectiveness. It's choosing to do the right thing. And that is where we need to be. We need to move away from the so-called energy efficiency into much more energy effectiveness. So I think it doesn't matter what sector that they're in, Katarina, because they will still have to play their part in that net zero. And some will have to do it more than others, of course, but I would just leave it with one point. In not doing nothing for another 2 years is going to cost a lot more money. And what I mean by that also, it will have huge impact on the environment and equally have huge impact on the economic ability of the EU. So there are two issues that are kind of being brought together here. One is COVID recovery around the economic resilience, and you can challenge the environmental aspects as well simultaneously. So there is an opportunity here with SMEs, irrespective of the sector that they may reside in.
That is true, and I think many policymakers wonder if they can burden the SMEs with greening issues now that they are hardly surviving, or many of them after COVID. Others are thriving actually. But I think it's important that we don't lose another opportunity, because so many funds are being spent, and the EU has made it quite clear that this time it's not having a crisis package without a very strong green component. I would like to share with you the contribution from one participant, Miguel Sequeira from Portugal. He sent us a link to his recent publication on a study amongst service sector SMEs in Lisbon. Energy audits have been indicating that an average saving potential of 27% of current energy consumption can be realized with a payback under 3 years. So that's low-hanging fruit. And a savings potential of 32 within payback under 6 years. So that is still quite acceptable. And so the main drivers for action here will be the cost cutting. However, the main barriers are insufficient knowledge, low priority given to energy, and funding difficulties. And you can see in the chat, the publication is shared. It's quite interesting. Take a look. And it brings us to the next question. So if these are the barriers, insufficient knowledge, difficulties with funding, low priority given to energy, okay, low priority, we have tackled that with the awareness. What is the role for regional and local governments? So which of our panelists is going to take a chance at replying to this?
Hello, Katarina. Hello, everyone. I can answer the question. Our research center, University Center for Energy Efficient Buildings in Prague, cooperates closely with governments in our region, in the Czech Republic, especially in the area in the low carbon economy. It is the Ministry of Industry and Trade in the Czech Republic. And the main point is to connect the private sector with the public. and we will share our experience thanks to the Energig Europe program, Resident Industry program, to share all experience with companies and try to connect the managing authority with them. And we connect them through our meetings, through the stakeholder meetings and policy breakfasts. And we are closely in cooperation with Ministry of Industry and Trade. They will publish each 3 months their newsletters, and there were published the article about the good practices from the project, and we will try to manage the appointment for the new applicants, and we will try to increase the number of the new applicants for subsidies in the field of renewable energy sources. So this is our point of view.
And that's your approach. Now, what's the obligation? What has the local and regional governments have to do to facilitate the process? Gabor.
Yes, thank you. So they have of course a major role because they know the specific demands in their regions. But we see in the project as well that maybe it's not utilized quite well overall. Local governments can be a bit passive with their policies. Let's say don't deploy their policies, their funding is not used, they close it down because they don't have the capacity. Therefore, stronger participation in capacity building programs like Energig Europe possibly would result them taking bigger risks supporting, let's say, the decarbonization in the SME sector, if we don't want to specify energy efficiency only.
Yeah, the capacity building, I think, is crucial, and it's kind of very often it's thought, okay, it's done once and then you don't have to repeat it. But this is a continuous effort that is required.
Yeah. Yes, like just to continue, like we have the Energig program, and now we have the Energig program. And some of the SMEs who participate in the Energig, they participate also in the Energig. So it's not just once, but as I said, you have to work very hard with the SMEs in local level.
Yeah. Chris, what can the local and regional level do?
I would suggest what they can do, agreeing with Gabor, they have a very important role to play. But what I would suggest is that the role is not one that they are used to themselves. Their role will be new. It will not be traditional. It will not be just incentive after incentive, because we realize that those incentives, sometimes they don't work. So therefore, I would suggest that what they can offer is support to build the confidence and attract, as Jakub had said, attract private sector investments into their regions and into their nations through some dynamic business models. And I believe that that's where the program funding is going to be instrumental, is seen as an investment. So I do like the term capacity building, because that can be then therefore replicated, and good practice or best practice can then be demonstrated. But I believe that the traditional methods of funding are no more. Just as there's been an economic downturn in the private sector, there's equally been an economic downturn in the public purse. So therefore, we need to come up with something which is a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more direct, so that the SMEs understand the role that they're playing. And if they're playing a significant role, then they should be rewarded for such.
Yes, and it's interesting. I never thought before Jakub said that the word audit is like somebody is controlling from the outside, and the outcome can be, oh, to shame you. I never thought that it could have this connotation, but actually it's totally true. So it's rather finding the benefit, working out the business models, maybe not looking at silos, at energy efficiency alone, but also combining it with resource efficiency and other productivity improving factors, saying innovation, including energy efficiency and renewables and resource efficiency, etc. I think that's a more appealing package. So I would like to hear a little bit from our audience in a poll. How about the operational programs for supporting SMEs with energy efficiency or renewables? Looking at the ones of the past period, did they offer support or not? And how about the ones that are coming up? Actually, I would expect that now all should offer supports, because we have read from the Article 8 of the Energy Efficiency Directive that actually every country should facilitate energy audits in SMEs and facilitate knowledge transfer and good examples. So yes, please keep voting. Just tick the boxes. I want to see a little bit more people participating here. Okay, that's good enough. Lotte, let's see the results. Okay, so well, almost 70% of the operational programs of the past period did support SMEs with energy efficiency and renewables. And how is it possible that these responses are so low for the upcoming? Maybe the programming is not finished. There is a larger part that doesn't know. Yes, of course. Maybe it's not yet clear to everybody what the new programs are supporting. Okay, thank you for this impression from the audience. And thank you for the panel. You may switch off. And I invite everybody to take a networking break. Now, how is that? You are all going to be beamed into a couple of separate rooms, 4 or 5 altogether. Let's do 4, Lotte. And in these rooms, you are meeting with the other participants. And just imagine you are grabbing a coffee and you're standing at the coffee table, and then you're meeting. And it's like, introduce yourselves to each other, speak a little bit, and get acquainted with the other participants. And we will be back at 3 o'clock sharp for the next plenary. Yes, we are recording again, session 2, and we're looking at the good practices to help SMEs save energy and produce renewable energy. I'll be joined in this session by 2 discussants, Jakub Dytrich, whom you have already met, and Michal Marian. From SME Plus. He's the regional implementation manager, and Marian works with the Southwest Oltenia Regional Development Agency. Hello, Michal.
Hello, thank you, Katarina.
Good. So we will hear 5 good practice pitches of 5 minutes each. And our 2 discussants, Jakub and Michal, will ask the presenters follow-up questions after each pitch. And the audience can ask questions to the presenters in the chat. Whatever you write in the chat, everybody can read it. And the presenters, after the presentation, will take the time to reply to your questions in writing. So please make use of that possibility. And so we have seen that really state-of-the-art SME support to the energy transition consists at least of 3 building blocks. 1, to reach and to motivate the SMEs. 2nd, some kind of audit or diagnostic to identify savings potential through audits, or identify options for own renewable energy production or fuel switch. And 3rd, financial options support for the implementation of these measures, maybe not for all, but for the ones that cannot be amortized within 3 years, the ones that really cost money. And we will see the good practices will cover these 3 points, at least 1 or 2, if not all. And to kick off, I would like to ask the audience in the next poll, which aspects of helping SMEs on their road to less energy use or renewables do you find the most challenging to address through public support? You just have a single choice here. So we want to see, do you find it most difficult to motivate the SMEs to engage in sustainable energy activities, to set up an energy auditing or diagnostic program, to set up a financing solution? Or you cannot say that one is more difficult than the other and you find all of them terribly difficult? Okay, just tick. I would like to see a few more votes before we close. I can already see the motivation is challenging. Okay, let's close the poll. Yeah. The motivation, get the foot into the door of an SMEs to start engaging in the activities, 42%, but 40% find all of the above challenging. However, the setting up of an auditing program seems to be the most straightforward, which is also my personal opinion. Okay, great. Then let's look at the good practice pitches. And I would like to introduce Patrik Thollander from the University of Gävle to present us the Energig Energy Efficiency SME Network, please.
Thank you, Katarina. So can you see my screen here?
Yes, if you go to full screen presentation.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So thank you for the introduction, Katarina. I'll speak in short about a pilot project called Energig, where we ran an energy efficiency network with the SMEs. So the program in short revolved around 7 networks, 5 to 10 SMEs each, and 55 in total. The model was based on the research done here in Sweden of barriers and driving forces. There is apparently also a similar approach, really good also, I think, from Germany and Fraunhofer, called learning energy efficiency networks, that we were not aware of that when we designed this, but they are very, very similar. And they're way further ahead as well, I must say, because they also go for large companies. In this pilot project, the aim was to see if energy efficiency networks could be something to be scaled up on a national level. And we also tried to use some ICT things, software and database. And we also tried to create a regional energy end use and energy efficiency database after the project. And just for those of you who are maybe a bit new into the field, energy efficiency networks is about creating relationships with a few other companies. So it's not like this meeting here today, which I call an information dissemination network. So here we're quite close groups and work together 3 to 4 years. Here is a screen dump of the database we use that's been created from national energy policy in Sweden that we used to get the SMEs like initiated into energy efficiency and measures and so forth. We actually gave them a piece of paper at the first networks meetings we had. The results turned out to be 16% energy efficiency improvement, or should we say energy effectiveness improvements, relating to Chris' talk. And that's about the double what you get from an energy audit, standalone energy audit program. So what we showed here, which also is in line with the research on learning energy efficiency networks, that energy efficiency networks basically double the impact of energy efficiency. So these companies do an audit and then they work together to deploy measures and also find new measures. Notably, 90% of the deployed measures are found in the support processes, And we know main energy use in SMEs is in the support processes, nothing strange there. But we also need programs to improve preferably the production processes as well further on. As we all know, I think time-consuming to get industrial SMEs on board. I call it an unresponded love story sometimes when we reach out to SMEs, but they never reach back to us with their love, so to speak. But we keep on working, right? So on this. But just to share you some numbers, it took us up to 1 year to get one company on board and 1 man week per company. And we as researchers, because we're university affiliated, we went outside of our comfort zone to do this. So having said that, we're not experts in pitching this stuff, but it was time consuming. And that's probably a major reason why we don't see a major deployment about this. We also had a national program. I don't think it was that much thanks to this program, but there is actually now a national program for energy efficiency networks for SMEs in Sweden. And there was a difficulty getting trained and experienced regional coordinators. So that is a challenge to deploy this type of program. So in short and in summary, I say there is a major potential to scale up SME energy efficiency networks also in other regions among you guys out there. So let's join forces. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrik. Wow, 1 person week per SME. That's scary. It shows the challenge. Over to our 2 discussants, Michał, Jakub, you take the questions for Jakub, Patrik.
I found your presentation interesting, but I would ask one point because it's interesting for me, for my project. You mentioned that to get the SMEs on board is time consuming for you. So my question is simple because we have the same problem in our project. What's your methodology? How you get them on board and how many you have them?
Yep. So I have a short answer to that. I actually, when I ran this policy program, I had the opportunity to hire a guy part-time that has been traveling around the globe to deploy energy efficiency. So what he could do, I don't know what he did, how he did it, but he phoned those companies and he had them on board. And then they hooked up in less than 1 hour. I had to take those few days to get them on board. So I think it's about also finding a team here that's where you need some, as in the private sector, you need someone selling your product, right? I think here to deploy SMEs, we need someone that's an expert in doing that, and probably a person with some gray hair, man or woman doesn't matter, but that would be my suggestion to you and all of you. So
thank you.
Okay, so I would have like 2 questions for you, Patrik. From all the tools created within the program, such as the software for industrial energy auditing, the energy efficiency networks, and the database for energy efficiency measures, which do you think it has had the most impact? And also, what advice could you give in case of replication of the program in other regions? Thank you.
Thank you. I can probably give, is it okay if I answer in, take 1 hour for this answer, Katarina?
Go ahead.
I'm just kidding. It's thanks, really good question also. Digital tools is difficult. You know, we have tried from the university to create a spin-off company in this, but it's difficult to market those type of products because you have to find the right business model for them. If I would be in your shoes and work as an officer, I would try and do this from the public sector. Try and create a database. You need to have it quality controlled, but that would be my suggestion. And as we heard in the chat regarding national energy audit programs as well, we need to standardize how we categorize data and so on. So before we've done that, we cannot really build a good tool for it either. So I think we together, and also experts out there, we need to join forces to also standardize. Otherwise, we collect data on supply of energy, and that's not really. You need better data than that. So blurry answer. Sorry for that, but I have no good answer for it actually.
It's good. Thank you.
You have a comment from one of our participants. Sebastian Hummel from the ministry in Hessen. He's appreciating that you are so honest about the long time that it takes to invest in mobilizing the SMEs. So he seems to share your experience. So that means also that the public sector has to budget for this time and budget for this effort. I think this is very often underappreciated.
I can respond short. Very good comment, Katarina, and also Sebastian. I think Chris mentioned also maybe join forces. I mean, we're maybe not allowed to all the time with the private sector, but sometimes maybe it's way better for tax money to hire a person like I had for 20% to get all the SMEs on board. That was a real big saving of public money and project money in that case.
Yeah. Great. Okay, thank you. Let's hear the next good practice pitch. Thea, please turn on your camera, your mic, and share your presentation. And tell us all about your very nice auditing program.
Hello everyone. I hope you can see my screen to switch it to the full mode. Okay. Can you see?
No, I see you. Now we're on the right way. Yes, now just go to full screen. Okay, perfect, yes.
Okay.
All right.
So hello to everyone from my side as well. I'm Thea Potočnik from local energy agency Spodnje Podravje from Slovenia, and I will just briefly present to you a good practice, namely support for energy audits and energy management system coming from EcoFund Slovenia and targeting specifically SMEs. Well, clearly energy audits can have a major benefits for SMEs as they are the basis for the implementation of energy efficiency measures. Like, for example, implementation of soft measures as given in audits like changing of light bulbs or monitoring of room temperatures, and SMEs can reduce its energy savings up to 10% with these soft measures. And these savings can go up to 40% with investment in the isolation, new windows, with the integration of the renewable energy sources. And in the case of deep renovation, savings can go up even to 60%. Similar with the implementation of energy management system, which could bring positive financial effects to SMEs and sure could represent the company's operation in the direction of sustainable development. But the problem is, although the benefits are clear, SMEs usually don't have available funds and time to carry out the energy audits or have limited organizational capacities and expertise. Or maybe the benefits are just not that clear to them, and that is why they don't want to spend money and energy on audits or energy management systems. Clearly, the support like the one coming from the EcoFund could encourage SMEs to implement energy audits. Nevertheless, the doubts and limitations, as the EcoFunds provides non-refundable financial initiatives for carrying out both energy audits as being the basis for creating a strategy in the field of energy use and for deciding on investment according to the priority in terms of risk, payback period and complexity, and also for implementing energy management system, which should establish systems and procedures to improve energy efficiency and perform systematic energy management. As said, the grant support is provided by the EcoFund, which is the only specialized institution in Slovenia that provides financial support for all kinds of environmental projects, besides to the businesses, also to the public sector and householding sector. And the source for the funding of EcoFund are provided by the state, by the loans from financial institutions, and through the taxes collected by the decree on energy savings. The amount of the presented grants here today is 50% to SMEs for eligible costs for carrying out energy audit or establishment of energy management system. The energy audit or the energy management system is carried out by the energy agencies or technological process expert or any other kind of expert that have the competence of energy audits as given in the European standard. The call was published in 2017 and will be open till the funds are available. And more than 50% of funds are still available at this point, but it is expected that the funds will run out in the next years as the benefits for carrying out audits and energy management system are clear. As already said, they present a cost-benefit analysis as they are the basis for deciding on investment in terms of risk, payback, and the complexity of energy efficiency or implementation of renewable energy sources measures. Also, SMEs can learn about measures of lowering energy consumption with little to no investment, which can help them save on energy bills and lower their emissions as well. They can get a valuable insight into their energy performance. And of course, when implementing the measures, this could help them get more environmental responsible image, which could result as an advantage on the market. Clearly, the presented good practice, the support for energy audits and energy management system is supporting SMEs in their energy transition. It's helping them in their path to sustainable energy development and is helping them to become more environmental friendly. And therefore, we think that its replication across Europe is very much welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Thea. The fund covers the whole country, right?
Yes, the whole country. We are a small country, so we are not divided in the regions. So, yeah.
Yeah. And will the audits be offered in the next period as well?
It's open call. Yes, it's not connected to the period because it's funded from the ECO fund, not with in the operational program. So it's open till the funds are available. Yeah. And at this point, more than 50% of funds are still available. Yeah.
Okay, great. Over to Michael and Jakub.
I'll go first. Okay. Talk about the how to improve the energy efficiency. What's how to improve the energy performance and the energy management. Can you be more specific? Can you tell us more in detail how you get step by step? Because I think maybe all of us will be interested in.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, I think you are asking about energy management system, yes, because this is maybe something more new. Yes, first of all, the established energy management system has to be in line with the ISO standard. I think it's 50001. This means that established system has to include a detailed study, which includes analysis of measured energy consumption in SME, basically the status quo or reference energy use before implementing any energy saving measures. Also, the study has to include goals and visions on use of energy with concrete energy saving measures, for example, organization measures for more efficient use of energy, but it all can also include more intensive investment measures like investment into the renewable energy sources. Basically, it has to include the long-term path of SME for energy saving measures and investments. Also, according to the ISO standard, they have to assure also monitoring of energy consumption. It can be lifetime monitoring or based on the bills, and also reporting and documenting the energy consumption and savings. And also, when obtaining the ISO standard, the establishment of energy management system, the SMEs have to obtain it at least 3 years afterwards. But what is also provided by this support is the training of employees, which is really important, I think, because they provide the trainings to employees to become so-called energy managers and to control energy consumption and use in SMEs and to monitor the efficiency of the implemented energy measures in their SMEs. Yeah.
Thank you. It could be low investment system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's the
even no investment system, preferably.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to ask you, would you consider to be the main factors that would motivate an SME to want to benefit from the services offered by the program? Thank you.
Thank you, Michal. Yes, really good questions. Yes, clearly to motivate SMEs is quite challenging, so, and as we have heard before, but we think that the grant itself provides non-refundable financial initiative in a share of 50% of total eligible costs for carrying out energy audit or establishment of energy management system. And we think this is the main trigger or motivator for SMEs to apply for grant and to implement those measures. But also, of course, SMEs in some way are forced to carry out energy audits as if they want to apply for any other subsidy from other programs, also from operational program, or also programs from EcoFund. For example, for new efficient machinery or PV systems or for deep renovation subsidies, they have to have energy audits. This is required, yes. But okay, but putting this aside, businesses that undertake an energy audit are more likely to implement energy efficiency measures, of course, and therefore ensuring that SMEs undertake audits by providing the supports as the one presented today by me is definitely an important step towards realizing the energy saving potential of SMEs, yes.
Thank you, Thea.
Thank
you
you.
also have a very interesting question in the chat that I invite you to respond, but we have to move on to the next pitch. So thank you. You may switch off.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I invite our duo from Durham County Council, Stephen and Caroline, to take the floor and to explain us about BEEP. Okay, we see your presentation. Just put it in full screen.
Okay. Thank you, Katharina. I did share presentation before I pulled up microphone and voice, so I was just trying to find the buttons. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Stephen Beresford. I'm the SME Power Project Manager at Durham County Council, and I'm joined today by Caroline Hearne, who's the BEEP Manager, our Business Energy Efficiency Project that we'll be talking about today. I'll just give a little bit of background. County Durham's been long engaged with energy efficiency, and going back to the old local agenda 21 days, but we've struggled to get engagement with businesses, the SME sector, until ERDF funding came along, really. County Durham has about 500,000 people. It's quite rural. There's a couple of large towns and cities, but mainly old mining villages. So we've got a lot of areas that are off gas, don't have the gas supply, and that applies to businesses and houses. And we've got a history of mining, so we did a lot of regeneration in the 80s with business parks, and so we've got lots of small SMEs spread around the county as part of a regeneration effort. So that's the sort of the environment that we're working in with our business project. And a lot of these smaller businesses they don't have the energy efficiency knowledge that some of the larger ones do. So our big challenge is really trying to get the smaller businesses engaged with energy efficiency. So when the ERDF call came out and we saw that the opportunity was there, we quickly pulled together our business energy efficiency project, which Caroline now manages. And it's still on mute. That's cheating, Caroline.
I need to learn to do it in international sign language, I think. Right, just to give you a little background to BEEP, it started in 2016 and we're now in the second project, which started in 2019. We are an in-house team. There are other teams that work around our area where they use a third party for auditing. We go on site, we carry out an energy efficiency audit, and then we produce a report afterwards. We look at both the premises, so we're looking at the standard of insulation in the buildings. We're in the north of England, so it's quite important. Heating and lighting, and what options there are for renewables there. We also look at the equipment they're using on site. So it may be things like compressors or industry standard equipment for whatever they are doing. And we also talk to them about transport and other things to do with sustainability, like maybe food waste, things like that. We have the ability to provide grants for any work that they do. We normally find we get in the door by talking to them about financial savings that they will make. So that is often the first stage for an SME to engage with us. And they don't have the skills, and I'm sure you all know that, they often don't have the skills in-house to look at how they could be more energy efficient. They're not aware of what technology there is. So that's why we're doing that. We make sure the application process is really efficient, and they're not filling in masses of forms. In fact, in normal times when we're not restricted from going to site, we go, we talk to them, we fill in the form as we're talking to them, they sign it. So it's not a lot of bureaucracy that will put them off engaging it in the first place. And we also have a website where we have a wealth of information for people to use generally. So things like fact sheets, and that might be as simple as how to read your energy meter, right up to what is solar thermal. So quite a range of things that people could read around in the background. We changed the way we work from the first presentation to the second. The first thing we did is the budget's very much bigger this time round, had a much smaller budget. We've also doubled the number of SMEs that we are engaging with, and also our target for the amount of carbon that the project's saving. So those are the two things that we are targeted on, is the number of businesses we're working with and the amount of carbon that we're saving across the county. We have colleagues who are dealing with the council's emissions. We are trying to help the general county ones. This is a photo of the team last summer. We were social distancing. We end up, it looks like a scene from a cowboy film. I think we looked like a posse of some sort. There's 5 of us. We have a website. We also have, and this is interesting from what people have mentioned earlier, we have a part-time engagement manager this time round. So before we were knocking on doors. If you went and told people what you did, they would have you in. But it's getting that message out there. Last time round, we tried the newspaper, we tried radio. This time round, we've had our engagement officer. She's been dealing with social media. She tells business groups in the county that we're here. We go and talk to them. So there's lots of things that she has helped us with. I'm just having a look at this. Oh, it's easy for us to provide independent audits. So we're not supplying anything, so they know that we've got nothing to promote to them, so that it's an independent audit. We've tended to have an ongoing relationship with our businesses now. We don't just go and give 12-hour support, walk away. They'll ring us 6 months later and say, we're now looking at this, and we will go back in and talk to them. The team have all been here from the first presentation of the project, and so we've built experience and knowledge. People have become specialists in different areas. We have tried to reduce the grants we give so that we can work with more people, and we match those to some of our priorities, which are things like heat and transport, which are more difficult, and innovation, rather than changing light bulbs for them. And we're also working with younger SMEs now. Before, we only worked with those that are established. Now we're trying to get there before they make the mistakes. So that's how we've changed. The challenges for us are that if we don't
Last minute, please.
Right, I'll speak faster. We don't have, if we don't deliver, we have clawback of money from the project. It's an expensive way to deliver the project, but we are gradually getting out there. COVID's obviously made us have to change the way we work, but we have still managed to work with over 100 SMEs in the last year. And bearing in mind, we've only been allowed out for 4 months. We've done quite well on that. We've worked slightly differently. We have less government incentives for renewables now, and the electricity grid, we have problems with that in the area because we've got a lot of remote workers too. The advantage of the project is that we're able to deliver grants and services to firms that wouldn't normally benefit from ERDF. It helps the local authority, it builds our reputation among the county that we are offering this service to our businesses. As I said, we've got a very skilled team now and people specialise in their areas. And, you know, we are helping the environment for the whole of the county, not just looking at the council's emissions, but also right across. Just in time.
Almost. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to the two of you. I'll hand straight over to my two discussants. Go ahead.
Quick. Okay. You provide great amount of services to the participating SMEs, and with no upfront costs. That's really great. My question is, what is the response of the SMEs participating? Because that's what all of us could benefit of.
Yeah, I think generally, well, it's positive. They want to work with us. Obviously, the project removes a lot of the hurdles to prevent that initial engagement. Towards the end of the original BEEP project, we did an independent review, and the UK government requires us to do that. But we really went all in and did the stakeholder engagement. We tried to find out what the SMEs benefited from and the council staff, and what worked, what didn't work. And we built that into the second bid. So we listened to the customer, I suppose, at that point, and tried to deliver more of what they wanted in the second BEEP. So we improved the offer through a lot of the mentioned methods that Caroline mentioned there. So it just tried to make it more accessible and get them on board. So I think the main benefit that we're seeing not with all the businesses, but with some of them, is that it starts to transform how they see energy and their engagement and their role within it. They, rather than just seeing it as energy, they start to see it as, oh, this is how we do business. And it shifts their mindset from just getting a grant and changing a boiler over to, right, how do we change our business to be more environmentally friendly? Oh yes, and save some money as well. We've just done a virtual site visit for SME Power because people couldn't come to visit us this time here. So we've just put a couple of SMEs together that did some interviews with them. And we've just got those online in the last couple of days. So I'll ask Lottie if she can share the web address for them, and then you can sort of see how they respond and some of the work that we've done in Durham.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we shared the link with the video. You can find it in the chat.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you. I would like to ask you first, what is the territorial scope of the business energy efficiency program, and also how could it be scaled up? Thank you.
That's a good question. Thank you. So the BEEP project, it covers all of our administrative boundary. That's County Durham. It was on the map in the early slides, but there are, as Caroline mentioned, similar schemes nearby. I think Durham was one of the first ones out of the blocks when the funding announcement was available. We had ideas already, and we were ready to go. So we made a quick start. At the time, it probably wasn't appropriate to try to do a larger project. Durham was a transition area, so we got a slightly better funding allocation than the other places nearby, and it would have been very complicated to try to merge them together. Now everyone's got more experience. I think if we were doing it fresh and from now, that was something that we would consider. There's benefits in scaling up. If we go into a business and we make some changes, we'd like to affect the supply chain up and down, who they get their materials from, who do they sell to. The larger area you've got to work with, the more chance you've got with that. You know, it helps getting it across there. So yeah, I think a larger scheme would be more effective, but we do benefit from having that hands-on engagement with the businesses. I mean, in normal times, go and see them and have that face-to-face discussion, and that long-term relationship makes a difference to how we do it. I think attitude to risk is also important. Our model shares the risk across a lot of small SMEs. You know, we will make a lot of savings across a lot of businesses. If we'd tried to target larger SMEs, the risk would have been higher. If one or two dropped out, we wouldn't have made our allocation of carbon savings that we said we would do. So it's difficult to scale up in terms of size of business, but and still have that appetite of risk. If there was a reserve pot, you know, if we had our core costs covered in one bid, but there was a separate pot available for larger scale works, £500,000 or something, that would be excellent. That would be a brilliant way to scale the project up, for example.
Thank you. Yes, of course, the local anchorage is very important because you have to build those relationships with your SMEs. But certainly it isn't very effective if every little territory has its own program. There must be economies of scale if the good practices were spread on a larger territory. Thank you, Stephen and Caroline. We are moving on to Germany, to Hessen, and we're looking at another scheme. And I'm inviting Charlotte Reith from the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Energy, Transport and Housing to come online, show your camera and share your screen. Of course, Hessen is also not entire Germany, but the German states are very large. This is already a territory that comprises quite a good amount of SMEs to work with. We'll hear from the PIUS program. Charlotte, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katharina. My name is Charlotte Reith. I'm working for the Ministry of Economic Affairs in Hessen. As said, Hessen is just in the middle of Germany, the heart of Europe. And I would like to present to you today our innovation and investment program, PIUS. PIUS stands for Production Integrated Environmental Protection. And yeah, we have these three interlinked programs that we have created using resources from the EU Structural Fund ERDF. This system consists mainly of two parts. On the one side, we have the PIUS Beratung, which is an advisory scheme. And on the other hand, the PIUS Invest, which is a funding scheme. It is even possible to combine it with an innovation loan. It's called innovation credit. And all these three programs linked together leads to 100% funding. Our main policy targets are to increase competitiveness of companies. We focus here on SMEs, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to reduce energy and material consumption. So our programs are not only focused on energy, but like all kind of resource efficiency and material waste and water use. So who is eligible? The first part of our program is the PIUS Consult, so this advisory scheme, and this is like the first part of the support system. Its goal is to identify where savings can be made in all the areas. So we have the service, production, and trade, and our target group are small and medium-sized enterprises in Hessen, based in Hessen. So how does it work? What is eligible? We have external consultants working for the RKW. I will show you the stakeholders we work with later on more detail. And they are supporting the SMEs to identify where savings can be made. So in material use and in energy use or consumption. And this savings leads to recognizing potential for reduction in CO2. The funding rate is 50% with a maximum of €650 per day for a consultancy and no more than 13,000 euros in a period of 3 years. Then after identifying where savings can be made, the second part kicks in. This is the PIUS Invest program. So to implement the identified savings. The PIUS Invest is also aimed for the SMEs in Hessen, and the funding implies process and organizational innovations. it is required that direct actions are taken to reduction in material and energy consumption. The funding rate is up to 30%, but the reduction of CO2 emissions must at least be 1 kilo per each euro that you get by the funding. So this is kind of an interlinked precondition. The maximum amount of funding is 500,000 euro per application. Yeah, we have these 3 phases. So PIUS Consult, PIUS Invest, and then the innovation credit, the innovation loan. In the phase of PIUS Invest, an advisor can certify the necessary innovation and also calculate the CO2 savings. And with this certificate, you can apply for the innovation credit. So companies can use or take full advantage of all the 3 programs, but they can also apply separately for each one of the steps. But our main goal is that companies go through the whole circle and then get full advantage of our programs, because there's like a perfect complementation, and they end up with 100% funding here. Our stakeholders are, we here at the Ministry of Economic Affairs in Hessen. We are providing the ERDF funds. We are also setting the strategic approach, the focus and the basic conditions. And we also check that it is in line with our political strategy. Then we have the Regional Business Development Agency, Hessen Trade and Invest. They are state-owned. They are actually doing for us what was mentioned before, like the difficult work to get in touch with the companies, to promote the program and to do the first contact. Then we have the RKW Hessen. This is the Regional Business Support Agency, which is privately owned, and they are coordinating the PIUS Consult program. They are hosting a bunch of external agents and consultants, and they are also the first point of advisory for potential grantees. And then we have the B-Bank, and this is the State and Business Infrastructure Bank. They are transacting the actual ERDF funds. They are receiving the applications. They are advising the whole process of the PIUS Invest program that we offer. Which is what is pretty unique.
Last minute.
That we work as one team, and yes, this is a great advantage that we have. Our achievements so far, that we have funded 55 projects and supported with PIUS Invest with 12 million euro. Like this, we could save up to 19,000 tons of CO2 per year. And the average CO2 saving that we have is 1.6 kilo per every euro of funding that we give. And PIUS is a success story for us, and we would like to continue this in the upcoming period, and we are pretty confident that we can do it, but there's still some challenges that we face. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. I mean, obviously, your program is a very complete program, and I think it's really exemplary. I think it's also a future-proof program, because you have the process and the organizational innovation without just focusing on one factor like energy. And your program measures the impact in CO2 and links it directly to the funding level. This is already in line with the new state aid guidelines as the Commission is proposing now. And I think it's great that you pilot the program directly at the Ministry and the Managing Authority, and you do not have to compete for funding for this program, because it's a strategy. Thank you very much, and over to my 2 discussants.
Thank you, Katerina, but you are partially stealing my question. I would like to ask, because wow, when I see the scheme, it's really complex. But because we all start in the beginning, I would like to ask you, what's the first time, the beginning of the system, how it looked like in the beginning, and how it evolved and why it evolved, and so it's great.
Mm-hmm. My colleague Sebastian Hummel is also joining me because he's working longer for the ministry than I am. But back in the days in 2009, there was like a first pilot of the PIUS consultancy program. So like the advisors were going to the SMEs of companies and like really like analyzing and seeing where was the need for improvement. The problem was that there was a big gap between like the need for the investment and then the actual capability of the SMEs doing that. So it was really clear for us that there has to be like a second factor, which is the PIUS Invest program, and that was offered or implemented in 2013.
Thank you very much. When I have more time, I would like to look more into the scheme.
Okay, so I would like to ask you, given your experience gained so far with the program, what can you tell us about how the expected and assumed results regarding the energy efficiency targets at the SME level are monitored, and if the program has proven to be effective until now? Thank you.
Yes, I think we can proudly say that the program is effective. We are actually monitoring it on the program level. So we have different indicators set it, and like these indicators that we have set up in the beginning, we actually overachieved them kind of. So that was really a great success for us. So on average, like 50% more CO2 was saved than we expected in the beginning from the pilot project. What is like a key factor for our program, that the funding is interlinked with the CO2 savings. So this is, as Katarina said already, great for the ERDF operation programs, like the duties that you have to fulfill, these requirements. And also, like each project that we have is also like evaluated on a very there is a expert for each project, and they individually do the evaluation for each program.
Thank you.
Great. We have recently organized a matchmaking where one region, Western Macedonia of Greece, wanted to look much more in depth into this PIUS program, and maybe somebody from my team can share the link to this matchmaking, where you can also find more extensive slides about PIUS. Thank you,
one point I would like to add, Katerina, is very quick. It's one point. I would really recommend that you try to calculate the results of all your programs in CO2. This is the new currency, not just in Europe, I think globally. And we see that the politicians love it to get numbers about savings of CO2, and it makes it much easier to get more fundings in the future if you can show them you have a price for the savings in CO2, but at least you can give them some outputs, and that makes it much easier to debate than just say we have results in form of estimations or whatever, but we can really give numbers, and that makes it easier. So I would recommend this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sebastian. Yeah, CO2 is a new currency. Great. So let's move to our last pitch. This one is a little different because we take the perspective of an implementation study from an SME perspective, and I'm calling Jan Špale to take the floor and share his presentation. Jan, over to you.
Thank you, Katarina. I will just share my screen. Great. So indeed, my name is Jan Špale, and I'm from Czech Technical University in Prague, specifically University Center for Energy Efficient Buildings. And I'm here as an energy expert of a project named Reith Industry, which is focused on finding the motivations behind industries, not only in Czech Republic, but also in other 6 regions of our Reith Industry project, for installing renewable energy sources in their industries, and also trying to identify the policy frameworks and the policy schemes behind it. So as you mentioned, I'm in a bit different position than the other speakers, since I'm delivering a good practice that we collected from the industries, and I'm not here on behalf of the policymakers, not even the one who's behind the policy framework, but I'm an energy engineer who's just more involved in the technology. And I would like to now present you with not only the policies for renewable energy sources, but also with the technological side. All right, I should mention the name, of course. So we are looking at the case of MALFINI. MALFINI is a formerly named company Adler. It's an industry focused on textile, and it's creating textile T-shirts and so on. And they 2 years ago, they invested into a hybrid photovoltaic systems with accumulation in batteries. And now let's take a look a bit closer on the installation. So as I mentioned, it's a supplier of promotional textiles situated in Czech Republic. And since if you supply textile, you need some large warehouses. So very quick logic. What can you do with large warehouses with large roofs? Of course, you can install photovoltaic panels on them. Actually, the motivation behind this installation was not only economic, but it was the whole CEO's vision of Green MALFINI. Since the CEO of the company, from my point of view, identified successfully that green marketing now is more effective than anything else. And the whole company started to promote their services and their products along with this green marketing. So they created a brand for that, and they created a website where they track all the CO2 emissions. And I believe this is a very successful story of how green marketing can improve sales of the whole company. From the technological side, the project was, as I mentioned, for solar PV installation on the warehouses, on the rooftops, but not only on the rooftops, but also on its shell. And the whole installation is coupled with Li-ion batteries with 360 kilowatt hours of accumulated energy in Li-ion batteries, and also 2 innovative combined heat and power units. These combined heat and power units, these are using natural gas, but they are quite innovative since they are condensation power units. So they have very large efficiency of combined heat and power production. But coupled with that, the company also bought electric vehicles to distribute the textiles, and also some electric forklifts, which is all coupled together with the solar PV and with the batteries, with a purpose-designed instrumentation and control system. And it's predictably controlled, so it also takes into account the weather forecast and the forecast of the price of electricity and so on. This project was supported by the Czech Ministry of Industry and Trade, and specifically by the operational program of Enterprise and Innovation for Competitiveness in 2019. So it was the call from 2014-2020, and it was under the call for low carbon technologies. The whole installation is in operation since September 2019, and it has been quite a success story of the whole company, as I mentioned earlier. The whole investment took around 650 euros, with approximately 50% of co-financing by the company for the PV and for the batteries, and the CHP was without subsidies, and the company took a bank loan so that they took advantage of the credit. So after all, the company reached 82% self-sufficiency on the site energy demand, and yielded 160 tons of CO2. And they also delivered the carbon footprint analysis, and they found out that it reduced the carbon footprint of the textile after the whole chain or the supply chain by 41%. There were indeed some drawbacks with these installations, and it can be perhaps stressed out that since there were some large electricity overflows to the grid, because during the weekends the production is rather low, so almost the policy framework does not allow to have larger electricity overflows than 20% from the whole solar PV. So because it is dedicated for increasing energy efficiency of the company and not to sell electricity from PV. So so they have to reduce the power production during the weekends. So this is a drawback from my point of view, and the limit should be a bit higher to prevent such situations. And this is just a large slide. Perhaps if you have provided the slides provided afterwards, you can look a bit deeper into the technology of the whole MALFINI site. But as I mentioned, the photovoltaic power plant on the rooftop, you can see that there's still some large space, so they are planning to invest more into that. And the panels also on the shell and on the walls, the all black panels on the facades, the batteries, the combined heat and power plant. Yeah, the electric vehicles and forklifts, and the measurement and control. So there are all the technological details listed here. You can take a look afterwards. So yeah, thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, that is more than just a couple of PV on the roof. That's a much more comprehensive intervention. Over to our two discussants.
I am. That's my colleague. I have to say hi. MALFINI company makes a large step to lower the carbon footprint. Yeah, but I think that through all of this presentation, the red line is how to encourage the SMEs to ask for funding to draw the funding from the state or from the EU to lower the carbon footprint, to increase the energy efficiency, and so on. My question is thus: what is the obstruction, or how the funding scheme could be improved to encourage these SMEs, or not only SMEs but mainly SMEs, as we are talking about SMEs, to draw more funding, or to increase the energy efficiency, and to, I don't know, install more renewable energy sources?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. That's indeed, of course, a big question, and we are identifying the motivation not only of the success stories which already invested into renewable energy sources, but also of those who perhaps wanted to invest and have submit a project, but then they rejected it because there were some troubles. So we wanted to identify also the ones that were troubled, and the most often mentioned was the bureaucratic and administration load, since the SMEs often cannot just during the project preparation phase to hand out such a large amount of cash to pay for a company which would prepare the project proposal for them. And they have this obstruction during the project preparation phase, that they cannot allow simply to pay another company to do it for them, and they also they don't have the expertise to do it themselves. So they are often struggled in this weird situation. I believe another call which would help them to prepare the project proposal would be very beneficial to help them out, especially the very small industries.
Yes, it's always the same. Michal, I'm going to cut your question due to time concerns. Thank you very much, Jan, for this nice illustration case study. And I would like to ask our audience, now that you have heard these good practices, which one do you think provides the most relevant concepts or lessons for your own territory? You can use multiple choices. It's not a beauty contest. It's about what you find most relevant for your territorial context. Just click and let's see. So far I see the running is more or less even, which shows that all the programs have relevant lessons for some people. Okay. Good, let's close the vote. EcoFund in Slovenia has been winning. Okay, well, very good. So, and we have seen before that you find it most easiest to implement auditing schemes. So get in contact with TEA and improve your auditing schemes as fast as you can, I would say. We want to ask the audience to use the chat now for a little exercise. My colleague Simon is going to read the chat and to make a cluster of all your contributions. What we want to hear from you is, what do you need to improve or to set up your local SME support program? Write us in the chat. We'll put together a board with post-its and we will view it together after the short break. We will reconvene at 4:10. And our speakers from the European Commission have just arrived, and so they're waiting for you to come back. Just a short break, 7 minutes, and use the chat, please. Thank you. Okay, we're all back in the plenary. I must admit that the idea of writing what you need in the chat and then distributing you to the parallel rooms resulted in the loss of the thread. So we're going to skip this little exercise, even though we had prepared some very nice way of having virtual post-its. Well, next time then. Anyway, that gives us more time for our three presenters. So our two guest speakers, I'm very happy to welcome Alejandro Donnay. He's the Deputy Head of Unit at DG Competition. So DG Competition is not a usual participant to our energy-focused activities. However, since we're talking about SME support, and you have already had several hints at that in the previous presentations, of course, state aid is and DG Competition therefore are very, very important. We are looking at the revision of the state aid guidelines. And we're very happy to have Alejandro here to give us already the first glimpse of those. Rules of the game, everybody can write their questions in the chat. And unlike previously, now my colleague Simon is going to read them to Alejandro after his presentation. So Alejandro, the floor is yours, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much to everyone for being here and to Interreg Europe for the invitation to participate in this forum today. Let me first upload or share my screen. Okay, let me just a sec, because it should be there in 1 second. Here we are.
Yes.
So please tell me when you see it.
Yes, we see it.
Perfect. So thank you very much. My name is Alejandro Donnay. I am the Deputy Head of Unit in one of the two units, well, we have 3 units, in fact, dealing with state aid in the energy and environmental sectors. And I came to today here to present to you a little bit our proposal for reviewed guidelines on climate, environmental protection and energy. Because as some of you probably know, we are currently undergoing this revision. And in fact, there is a public consultation going on that started in June, at the beginning of June, and will close the 2nd of August. I will give you further details about that during the presentation. So, why is this not? Okay, now let me wait. Here it works. So to give you a little bit of context, the current guidelines on status for environmental protection and energy were adopted in 2014. They will be valid until the end of this year. And they already provide a framework for supporting several areas of the Green Deal and the green transition. We carried out a fitness check, which is an evaluation of these guidelines together with other guidelines during 2019. And that showed that they have generally delivered on supporting the member states to achieve the climate targets. But obviously, the Green Deal is a huge challenge for all of us, for all the member states, for the European Union. There are some aspects that need to be revised, and also a step change is needed to be able to be fully up to this challenge. The revision of the guidelines will not only start on this fitness check, but there was already another public consultation on the basis of a questionnaire at the end of 2020 that some of you may have participated. And we will also use as input a study that we have recently published and that you can check in the webpage of the public consultation. The rationale of the revision, it's to enlarge the scope of the guidelines, to allow aid for a wider variety of activities that are necessary to achieve the Union's Green Deal and energy objectives. If you know the current guidelines, we have tried to move away from rules per technology. That is the way the current ones are structured. And we have tried to create, where possible, common rules for a wider range of activities. The intention of this is to simplify the rulebook, to make it more future-proof, and to try to facilitate the schemes in which a wider variety of projects can compete. We have also made easier in these guidelines, or these proposed guidelines, to use a wider variety of aid types or aid instruments for these different activities, and in particular increasing the possibilities also to use aid paid in installments over the lifetime of a project. So not only investment aid, but also operating aid that could be paid during the lifetime of a project. But to increase the flexibility, we obviously need to propose some safeguards to make sure that the aid goes where it's really needed, and that is limited to achieve those environmental goals, and that does not distort competition. So I will mention those in the next slides. And finally, also to flag that another important point of this revision is to make the guidelines fully aligned and coherent with the relevant legislation and European policies in these fields. So the new guidelines have introduced a new letter in the acronym, and a new word in the full title, which is climate, that now joins energy and environmental. And these proposed guidelines in general take a stricter or relatively strict approach to fossil fuels, because as you can see in this slide, this is split between green, gray, and brown. The investments that will lead to, or the projects or measures that will lead to new investments in coal or similarly polluting fuels will be generally prohibited. And the possibilities for investments on gas, they will be sort of conditioned to be compatible with the 2030 and 2050 climate targets, so to make sure that they are 2050 proof. And the intention is to facilitate green measures. And we plan to do that, as I mentioned, by enlarging the scope of the guidelines, to all areas that can help to support or to deliver the Green Deal and all technologies with higher aid amounts. We are moving a little bit away from the aid intensity system, although it is kept in some of the sections, but we are going to allowing 100% of financing gap. Then we are allowing for simplified assessment of cross-cutting measures. And maybe not so relevant for some of you, unless you would like for SMEs, but although unless you would like to participate also in security of supply measures, we are allowing member states to introduce stricter environmental requirements and to be more generous in contract terms when we are talking about green technologies. More relevant potentially for SMEs is the GBER, the General Block Exemption Regulation. We are introducing new articles for new measures, increasing potentially some of the thresholds, allowing higher aid intensities. But just to flag that this proposal of the revised section of the GBER is not ready yet. So now what it is up for public consultation is the guidelines. And the new GBER proposal will be ready in a few weeks. Probably there will be a consultation that will start during the summer, but will run into September as well. So I wanted to present to you one of the key chapters of the new guidelines, which is the aid for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. As I mentioned, the scope of these proposed guidelines is no longer tech specific, not technology specific. As I said, the aid for all type of activities that reduces emissions is potentially possible in different type of forms. And covering the full additional cost of environmentally friendly activities. So this chapter could, for example, cover aid for renewables, aid for CHP, aid for industrial process efficiency, for CCS, CCU, among others. So all those measures that could help to decarbonize or to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And now we will speak about some of these safeguards that I mentioned below to balance this larger scope and possibilities. So the starting point of this new chapter of common assessment principles for these measures is that the schemes should be open to all beneficiaries that are in competition in a member state where the aid is being granted, and open to all beneficiaries that could deliver the required objective. Having said that, it is true also that the guidelines will allow for more selective schemes and can be accepted when justified. And in the guidelines and draft guidelines, there is a long list of possible justifications. For example, there can be renewables specific schemes to support meeting the renewables targets, or energy efficiency specific schemes to support beneficiaries to achieve those targets. Another safeguard that we have introduced in the guidelines is enhanced transparency. And we are proposing that for large budget schemes, a public consultation should be required by the member state on different features of the proposed scheme. As you can see on the pie chart on the right, we already asked about this in the public consultation that we carried out at the end of last year. And in general, a large majority found that very useful or useful. It is true that it increases a little bit the administrative burden for member states. So we are allowing that this, or let's say that this public consultation requirement generally applies only for schemes where more than 150 million euros per year will be granted. So schemes below that threshold may be generally exempted from this public consultation requirement by the member states. Another safeguard is the requirement to identify and make transparent the environmental protection cost, which means the cost per ton of CO2 equivalent reduced or per ton of CO2 abated. Here, the intention is to learn by doing and to allow member states to develop their own methodologies for this calculation, because this is not very straightforward. So, but we believe it's very important to demonstrate to the society that the aid really drives and delivers cost-effective decarbonization of the economy. We will not be requiring the member state to use this particular parameter, no, the euros per ton of CO2 reduced, as a basis for award the aid. So it can be still given as a euros per megawatt hour or euros per output of energy. But at least for transparency purposes, that has to be calculated. Although, for example, some member states may choose to use this criteria or this parameter, the euros per ton of CO2 reduced, in order to award the aid. For example, when talking about carbon contract for differences, that will be a very relevant measure. And another safeguard that we are including is the general requirement that aid must be allocated through competitive bidding processes. This has been proven worth both in driving cost and in reducing the complexity of administering and approving state aid. We have the experience under the current guidelines for the renewables schemes, this requirement of competitive tendering, and the studies that we have done with external consultants show that this has helped to drive costs down, together obviously with other drivers, like the advances in technology. And we thought it was important to extend this requirement to the whole greenhouse gas emissions reduction chapter. We also will allow, technological neutrality, or let's say tenders open across comparable areas and technologies should be the general principle, but exceptions will still be allowed and justified if proportionate. For example, when you have technologies that have a very different cost, and we are mentioning, for example, if technologies differ on cost more than 15%, member states would be able to do separate tenders for those technologies. So to finalize, I just wanted to mention one chapter that I think could be of interest to you. As I said, the guidelines are very broad, and you can see that there are many chapters with different type of aid. We cannot go through all of them today in the time I have for the presentation. But I think it's important to mention for you the chapter on energy efficiency for buildings. So the new guidelines will allow member states to combine both aid for the improvement of energy efficiencies with aid for investments that improve the energy and environmental performance. And then the cost linked to the environmental objective will be the eligible cost. For example, in this chapter, we will be keeping the methodology of maximum aid intensities, but there is a requirement, obviously, that the aid must induce a minimum level of energy savings. But just to give you some examples of the measures allowed under this section or this chapter, for example, the installation of on-site renewable energy installations generating electricity, heat, or cold could be looked or assessed under this chapter and not under the one that I just explained before, or the installation of equipment for storage of energy generated on site by renewable installations could be there. And then also a green bonus will apply to those measures that induce a significant energy savings. I think it's the details are in the draft guidance, but I think when there are more than 40% energy savings, those measures can get an additional 15% in the aid intensities. Just to flag also, you will see it in the draft text, as in previous guidelines and as in Gabor, there are also additional, the general maximum aid intensity is 30%, but then you can add some additional percentage point for small enterprises or for medium enterprises. And as I said, there is also a green bonus in this section. Procedurally, or to give you a little bit of the idea of the process, the next steps, as I said, there is a public consultation ongoing on the draft text of the guidelines that will run until the 2nd of August. In between, during this period, we will have a multilateral meeting with the member states, and we are having, as today, meetings with the stakeholders in different webinars, conferences, and presentations. And the idea is to have the revised guidelines ready by the end of the year so that they enter in force at the beginning of next year. In that link there, you will find the webpage regarding the public consultation with all the relevant documents, the draft guidelines, but also an explanatory note, the different studies that I mentioned before. And you can also find there the instructions to submit your contributions or your replies to the consultation. So that's what I wanted to explain today. So thank you very much for your time.
Interesting. Simon, what do we have in terms of questions for Alejandro?
Yep, so we had a question come in from Chris regarding your last slide. This was the slide on a new approach to energy efficient buildings. And he was asking if the green bonus is just for energy savings or also for security of supply.
Green bonus normally can be given or allowed when you have, let's say, a method of 8 intensities, maximum 8 intensities to determine the amount of aid. Now, because we say it's 30% or 40%, and if it's more green or greener, let's say there is an additional energy savings, that you can increase that to 45%. In security of supply, the amount of aid results from the auction, because as you know, security of supply measures have to be awarded. The aid has to be awarded through competitive processes. Therefore, the amount of aid results from the auction, and then we assume that it is proportional. So there is difficult to see a green bonus in the sense of adding something on top of that. What we have there in the security of supply chapter is what we call other type of green bonuses, and I will explain. On security of supply measures, we are allowing member states to be stricter than the electricity regulation on those measures in terms of emissions performance. As you probably know, in the electricity regulation, there is to participate in capacity mechanisms, there is a limit on the emissions that the power plant can emit of 550 grams per kilowatt hour. In the new guidelines, we are allowing member states to reduce that if they want. They can take it down or even put it at 0. What does it mean? That they could do a security of supply measure with that requirement of 0 emissions of CO2, which means that at the end would be a capacity mechanism or security of supply measure with eligibility restricted to demand response, to storage, or to renewables. You would not, including, for example, hydro. No, you would not be able to have gas or the thermal or their emitting technologies if the member state decided to put that lower emission limit. No, it's something that in the current guidelines we cannot do it. But in the new guidelines, we are proposing to do it in order to favor or to allow those member states that want to become greener in these measures. Another point there is, for example, we will. I think I mentioned it at the beginning. It was in one of the slides. We will allow member states to give, let's say, more generous contracts to cleaner technologies. That can mean a longer duration contracts now, for example, for greener technologies. So that would be a sort of green bonus that member states could introduce in security of supply measures.
Simon, maybe quickly one more,
Yep.
and Alejandro also, please, a quick answer.
Okay.
Okay, so thanks. You mentioned a few times, the role now of competitive bidding. But I mean, we've heard from quite a few organizations, particularly energy cooperatives, energy communities, are concerned that they may not be able to compete against large energy companies. I mean, what would your response be to these kind of concerns?
Okay. We will have, I mean, this is something that may be better addressed in the GBER, where we probably will have a specific article for energy communities. Obviously, not every type of energy communities, but certain size of energy communities would be allowed to obtain aid probably without competitive tendering. But at the same time, we have to be cautious, because the directive there, the electricity regulation, is clear when it says that for operating aid schemes, for aid schemes for renewables, support schemes for renewables, it has to be awarded through tenders. So only there are exceptions for small installations and demonstration projects. That will still be allowed. We have to define exactly, and I guess we will do that during the consultation process, where do we put the bar of small installations. Now, some people claim that is the bar that has been put also for balancing responsibilities, which is the 400 kilowatt hours, that then I think it goes down to 200 from 2026, if I'm not wrong. Some people claims that's too low. So we will have to balance those and try to get the input in this consultation, but more in particular also on the GBER one, on where to put the bar for the small installations so that they could be exempted from the requirement of tendering.
Great, thanks a lot.
Okay, that's reassuring, but 400 is very little. But okay, let's not go into that. Alejandro, thank you very much for having been with us for your time. I would like to invite Oronzo Daloiso to take the floor. You have already switched on your camera. Please share your presentation. Oh, Oronzo is from Unit D1, Life Energy and Life Climate, from the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. Oronzo, the name of your agency and unit is getting longer and longer. I hope that doesn't mean that the programs to fund energy efficiency are getting more and more complicated. Over to you to explain all about the funding landscape to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and for inviting me to this workshop. Indeed, very valid point on the name. You know, sometimes this is more political than practical, so clearly all the competencies that lie in an institution need somehow to be there in the title. But I have to admit we did some progress. Because indeed the idea of the new landscape of executive agencies as from the 1st of April was to create a sort of thematic portfolio and matching with the Gs. So which, you know, this is the reason why such a long name. Now, indeed, I work in Unit D1, which is the Life Energy and Climate unit. I'm project manager there. I will try to be short and give you an helicopter view of what will be the upcoming funding opportunities, which may be of interest for SMEs and energy efficiency and renewables. Well, a very global view on what the recovery package and the next MFF may look like. You know, we're talking about a reinforced multi-annual financial framework, which counts around 1.8 trillion euros. Next Generation EU is part of this, and 30% across this entire tranche of funding has been earmarked to climate goals. So this is very challenging, and it raises the question also of it will be much more interesting to invest in energy efficiency. Why? Well, because in any case, because on top of this funding, the idea is that investing in energy efficiency at the same time will enable to tick, if you want, some of these socioeconomic also indicators, because this type of investments do stimulate jobs, do stimulate local economy and support SMEs. Here you can see what may be an overview of the funding landscape. Of course, I mean, there may be others. We tried to capture the key ones. In terms of direct investments, we mentioned already the Recovery and the Resilience Facility. Many people in the room may be familiar with ERDF and cohesion policy funds. Worth mentioning the Just Transition Mechanism, which is an instrument which is taught especially for coal regions. InvestEU, there will be a sustainable, so to speak, window on infrastructures and SMEs. So it may be interesting, and this is also overdue. It will have to be coped, of course, with private investments, and SMEs are one of the key objectives of the fund. Research and innovation, Horizon Europe. I guess all of you may be familiar with the previous program, which was Horizon 2020. So the destinations which may be relevant for the audience will surely be buildings and industry. I would like to stress that Horizon Europe will focus primarily on research and innovation, less on what were the market uptake actions which were there in Horizon 2020. The CSA type of actions, so coordination and support actions, these will no longer be in the Horizon Europe program. They will mainly be dealt with by us, by the LIFE program, which includes, as from this new MFF, a clean energy transition sub-program. And finally, in terms of technical assistance, the ELENA facility and the technical support for cohesion policy, which are instruments well known surely by the audience. This is a lot, of course, of information. Now, what do we manage in SINEA, which the acronym may surely be easier than the full name. I will skip probably the Maritime and Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund and the Connecting Europe facility. I mentioned the Just Transition Mechanism, which is a public sector loan facility pillar taught for core regions. In the agency, we manage the bits of climate, energy, and mobility of the program. The Innovation Fund, which is almost entirely dedicated to innovative startups and SMEs, and the LIFE program, which has an envelope of 5.4 billion euros for the period 21-27. It was adopted, the regulation at the end of April. The multi-annual work program 21-24 was approved by European Commission a couple of days ago. By the member states a couple of days ago. Next will be a decision by the European Commission. 4 sub-programs, 3 of which you may be already familiar with, and the brand new sub-program, the Clean Energy Transition, which has been assigned an envelope of 1 billion euros for the 21-27 period. It is a sort of continuation of the energy efficiency part of Horizon 2020, clearly with new elements into it. Here you can see a snapshot of what will be the objectives and the activities that will be supported by the LIFE program. A focus on the clean energy transition one was key role will be to enable energy efficiency actions on the ground, while at the same time and renewables, while at the same time helping the implementation of policies in this sense. So I think one of the special features of the program is that it is the only one across the whole EU spectrum entirely dedicated to climate and energy goals. So this is, and at the same time, it is the one program which helps member states and local authorities in the implementation of let's say, policies which are directly or indirectly related to energy efficiency, renewables, and climate change. The 5 broad areas that we will be covering in the program are buildings, businesses, which includes SMEs and industry, attractive private finance, so exploring innovative ways of funding, and this I think will be very much one of the priorities, because clearly we know that it is impossible to fund with public funding audits, implementation of measures, renovation. So clearly there will be an emphasis on the combination of public funding with private finance, mobilizing local and regional investments. So here, as you can see, the shift is towards investments, and this is an area where typically we work a lot with local authorities, regions, cities, provinces, if any. And the 5th one on engaging and empowering consumers. I heard a question on energy communities. This is part of the work that will be covered. And in terms of type of activities that we expect in the program, there will be a lot on developing and spreading best practices, but as I said, a lot of emphasis will be put on mobilizing investments, improving skills, educating. So really projects that will work on the ground. And for what concerns specifically SMEs in industry, the focus will be really on the uptake of energy efficiency measures and renewable measures by large and small companies across the EU. So it will be less of a focus on studies, more a focus on pragmatic actions, such as, for example, supporting the actual implementation of energy audit recommendations, which per se is part of the EED, especially Article 8 of the Energy Efficiency Directive. There will be also actions looking at facilitating and accelerating the deployment of industrial symbiosis and sustainable value chains. So this is because we believe that by involving SMEs and companies in an idea of a sustainable value chain may be easier than actually working with them individually, precisely for the challenges that are linked to the diversity which is intrinsic in SMEs and the various sectors they work in, etc. At the same time, there will be an attention on addressing the non-technological barriers, and I stress non-technological because the technological barriers are instead dealt with by Horizon Europe. From our end, we will focus on the non-technological barriers facilitating the electrification of industry and services. And finally, developing financial tools, supporting SMEs in investing on clean energy solutions. So what we mean here is how can we de-risk, how can we standardize this type of investments, how can we aggregate projects to make access to finance easier especially for SMEs. Finally, in terms of support schemes, I wanted to bring a concrete example of an ongoing project that we have. It's called LEAP for SME. It is a project, mainly it is led by Enea, the Italian energy agency, and the beneficiaries of the action are all energy agencies. And what they are investigating and they're working on is indeed considered the obligations under Article 8 and the fact that member states are indeed invited to create schemes, support schemes, which may be financial or not for SMEs, and that support them to undergo energy audits and possibly implement the recommended measures. The project is looking at which schemes can actually be developed across the EU to do this in an efficient way. Also, given the challenges linked to the implementation of the directive, which were, let's say, put forward by member states. So they're looking into which schemes can be used across the various countries to do this. So I invite participants, if interested, to get in touch with the project and see what is happening in their country, because there is an observatory also which is set up, and that will include I would say practically all EU countries. So that may be an interesting for the audience. And finally, one slide on how to follow us. I would suggest that if you're interested to receive news about the funding programs that we manage, you can sign up to our newsletter, and so that we will receive information whenever calls are about to be published or results are about to be published. That was all from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oronzo, for being with us. You had 2 intense days. You had your own information days. Was there anything published, anything launched on your side on the occasion of the information days?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm impressed. You were well. To be honest, we're under a process of we have some delays. So for now, for the time being, we are recording the information day, and it will be public as soon as the multi-annual work program is public.
I see. Okay, my information dates from 6 weeks ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Simon, do you have questions?
Yeah, so I mean, I was wondering, I mean, you said that the regulation has been adopted in April, and from what I understand, we're still waiting for the work program to come out. I mean, do you have a rough estimate of when calls would be launched?
Rough estimate, I would expect shortly before the summer. Shortly before the summer, maybe July, but depending on when the Commission will take a decision. But the idea, I mean, what we are working towards is that this is done as soon as possible, of course. But so we're trying to do it before the summer. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Of course, don't quote me.
How about those funding rates? I mean, LIFE is known to have notoriously low 50% funding rates. The CSAs have maybe given the beneficiaries a very comfortable up to 100%. What's the funding rate?
Yeah, also in terms of funding rates, I don't think it is a good idea to raise this point now. Yeah.
I understand. Okay, well then, Oronzo, thank you very much for your contribution. Thanks for being with us, and good luck. And you will not let us have a restful, peaceful summer, I see. Everybody is throwing their work programs at the stakeholders just before the summer break.
Yeah, true, but I'm sure there will be plenty of time to prepare good proposals. That's, I think.
That's what counts. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you. Thank you again for inviting me. I wish you a good continuation, and bye for now.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you have seen we have run slightly behind schedule. I will just give the floor to my colleague Elena Ferrario, who is the thematic manager of the Policy Learning Platform, and she will tell you what regional or local authorities or other organizations could get from the Policy Learning Platform services. For instance, if you want to follow up on the discussions of today and turn into practice some of what you have learned. Elena, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Katarina. Indeed, I wanted to maybe spend a little bit more time to give you the larger framework of this event, talking to you about Interreg Europe and globally about the Policy Learning Platform, but unfortunately, time does not allow. But yes, maybe 1 minute on our special services called expert support services really deserve a bit of your attention. So apart from all the other things that we do at the Policy Learning Platform, what makes this platform really unique compared to other networks for dissemination is what we call indeed the personalized policy advice services, starting from the policy help desk, which is really very quickly, you drop us a line and one thematic expert, just like Katarina and Simon, will provide you with a very comprehensive reply, giving you information, material, contacts, possible additional literature that you can find inspiration from. So very easy, but very effective. Matchmaking sessions. So we have been talking about this during this event earlier already. Some of you have experienced that, and I'm happy to have heard during the networking breaks that it was really appreciated. This is a 2-hour online or on-site meeting. You request a matchmaking session to the Policy Learning Platform, and the Policy Learning Platform does it all for you. So we prepare an agenda around your specific request, your specific choice of a topic, and we also select a limited number of participants that really can bring added value to you because of their expertise, of their competence on a specific topic. So again, maybe this is a short format, but again, it could be really an interesting tool for you to discover. And finally, the last word on the peer reviews. This is basically an XXL format of a matchmaking session. So it's really instead of a 2-hour, this is a 2-day on-site or online meeting. It is really a working meeting. So very intense. The only thing that the beneficiary needs to do, so you would need to do, is to draft a very, very easy and short application to the Policy Learning Platform. And once this application is analyzed and validated, let's say, again, we do it all. So our thematic experts organize an agenda, organize the event, select a number of peers meaning colleagues of yours around Europe, practitioners of regional development policies that have a competence on the topic of your choice, on the policy challenge that you would like to explore. Again, talking about SME support scheme, you would like to learn more about one or the other examples maybe that you heard today, because you are in the process of modifying your policy related to that, or creating additional schemes for your SMEs in your territory. Why not asking for a peer review to the policy learning platform? And this is again a very efficient system, because in these 2 days these peers really analyze your context, your territorial context, and bring extremely concrete hands-on advice for you to start implementing maybe differently and better your SME support schemes. I think, yeah, maybe this is really the last word. It's to show you that this service works. We have been doing already 22 peer reviews, and we have 11 more in the pipeline. And yes, well, I just put on the slide one recent example that Katarina led recently for region Western Macedonia. So really do not hesitate to contact me or Katarina or Simon for more information on this. And maybe Lotte is also, I don't see the chat, but also linking the right link to get more information on our website. And with these words, back to you, Katarina. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Yes, we never get tired of advertising our services. They are free for you, and well, they please us actually, because it's nice to make an impact and to make a difference. Yeah, you can find all the links to the different on-demand services in the chat. Okay, so we come to our conclusions. It's time to wrap up. Simon and I are going to say a few words about the takeaways from today. I will start. I think we should not forget about skills. Your questions in the chat have shown a big interest on how to educate auditors, how to train people to make energy diagnostics or to install energy management systems. So don't forget the human component and train your people. It takes time to train them, and you will have a need of these qualifications more and more. Methodologies. We will all need to have methodologies to calculate first beforehand and then to verify the CO2 impact of interventions in one or the other way. So whoever wants to do something like that, I think Hessen is working on new methodologies. Drop us a line if you want to find out more. Networking of SMEs and mobilization, I think good old traditional local connections and local demarching, continuous with targeted and trusted and competent experts is the way to go forward, providing inspiring examples that other SMEs have implemented, and also not to forget maybe value chain corporations. I'll take a break and let Simon say a few words.
Okay, well, you covered a few of my points there, but I picked up that programs really need to focus on outreach and building trust, which can be very time-consuming and indeed expensive, but absolutely essential for engaging SMEs. We discussed also how support instruments should focus on competitiveness and performance, not just lecturing SMEs on their performance and making them feel bad. And also that support instruments need to cover everything from engagement to implementation. The energy audits alone are not enough. There are indeed significant barriers to further implementation. I would note also at this point that in the next few days, you'll get an email from us with the recording of this session and also a write-up where we'll summarize in greater detail the key lessons and takeaways.
Yeah, I have also taken away from Oronzo's presentation the requirement to do not individual projects one by one, but to build a pipeline of projects. Activities will be funded that foster aggregation of similar projects and the preparation really. So I think this is where our support should also be targeted at. So scaling up, speeding up, yeah, okay. So there's no room for putting your hands down. There's a lot of work to do. Let's start it, I would say. It's time to thank all the speakers. You've done a really good job. You've been very disciplined in the timekeeping, almost all of them, all who are still with us now, at least. Thank you to our two discussants for the follow-up questions. Thank you to my colleagues for the organization, and thank you for the audience of staying with us for a quite long 3 hours. It's the first time that we test this concept online for keeping you such a long time. However, the topic of SME supports, we thought we should tackle it at once, and it's no point in doing a short 90-minute webinar because there's much too much to say. And so we hope we haven't bored you. We hope we have been of added value and also of some entertainment value. And it is time to say goodbye. Have a good afternoon, have a good summer, and be energy efficient.